I know you mentioned Shedeur up on the side, on the podium rather. What would you like to see his offseason look like, and what have you seen these last 7 weeks building towards 2026?
I'd like to see him continue to make progress. He got valuable reps this year, starting 7 games. I think he's got to continue to make progress with his pocket management, his situational awareness, things like that. But you'd like to see him take a major step forward going into week 1.
During the game in Cincinnati, Nathan and I.
Man, I'm telling you, it's going to be some heartbreaking news for the Cleveland media. You see, the Cleveland media want everybody at that quarterback position, but Shedeur Sanders. They bringing up the quarterback rating, the QBR, whenever you see those initials. That Shedeur was the lowest in all of Star.
The media has been loud, relentless, and honestly reckless with the speculation, but Andrew Berry finally stepped in and shut all of it down. Emphatically. No more whispers, no more guessing games, no more manufactured drama. Berry made it crystal clear that Shedeur Sanders will be the Cleveland Browns' starting quarterback in Week 1, period. That statement alone should have forced every critic to hit pause and rethink their hot takes, because this wasn't vague language or corporate fluff. It was a direct declaration of trust and direction. Andrew Berry's words sent a loud message about the Browns' quarterback future, and it wasn't up for interpretation. While media personalities were busy spinning theories and arguing over imaginary quarterback battles, the general manager was calmly laying out the reality of the situation. Shedeur Sanders is the guy.
Affect the head coaching search.
Well, it's certainly something that we're going to talk about a lot with the candidates. But it's maybe a little bit less on their particular view of the quarterback situation and more about their thoughts and planning for it.
Before that final drive, said this is kind of Shedeur's closing argument, if you will, for 2026. How did you view it?
Yeah, I thought it was a great...
I'm sorry, for 2025.
Yeah, I thought it was a great situation for him to be in, because you look in a game where he was scuffling. It wasn't one of his stronger games, certainly early on. It's like, hey, can we get settled and get the team in scoring position to win the game? And he was able to do that. And I think, look, you're not always going to have your fastball every week in the NFL. It's too hard. Defenses are too good. But the fact that he was able to do that and lead us on a scoring drive when we absolutely need.
And the organization is moving forward with him leading the huddle. What separates Berry from the noise is that he doesn't obsess over surface-level metrics like QBR or cherry-picked ratings that some analysts love to wave around like gospel. Berry isn't building this team off spreadsheet debates. He's focused on development, growth, and long-term stability, things that actually matter when you're shaping a franchise quarterback. He openly talked about patience, trust, and allowing Shedeur Sanders to grow naturally instead of throwing him into a constant cycle of doubt and replacement talk. Berry also reminded everyone of something the media conveniently ignores. Shedeur Sanders already played meaningful football last season. Starting 7 games as a young quarterback is not nothing. It's experience you cannot fake. That's real reps, real pressure, real NFL speed. Those snaps matter. And Berry clearly values them far more than the armchair analysts ever will. Instead of obsessing over box scores, Berry highlighted the real areas of growth: pocket awareness, decision-making, situational control. Those are traits that develop with time, coaching, and confidence. This isn't about flashy highlight reels every Sunday. It's about building a quarterback who can manage games, read defenses, and command the offense when it matters most. And Berry believes Shedeur Sanders is on that exact path.
Shedeur Sanders. Now, Jason Lloyd said, I don't think Shedeur should be on the team, period. But Andrew Berry said, what? I would like to see Shedeur take major strides going into week 1 game, week 1 off season, week 1 preseason, week 1 training camp. I mean, I'm just saying, y'all, he got cut off and he caught himself, so he cut it off. I'm just trying to tell y'all. Y'all miss, hey, look at him, family. Andrew Berry ain't crazy. They ain't finna get rid of Shedeur. Shedeur is their franchise quarterback. This dude played, listen, Shedeur played with a messed up offensive line. Look at this offensive line when they played Buffalo. They pushing these left tackle, right tackle, all in the backfield on Shedeur. All in the backfield. And they expect Shedeur to work a miracle each game with this offense.
Now look at how some Cleveland media outlets have handled this situation, and it's obvious they're chasing clicks instead of clarity. Every incomplete pass becomes a headline. Every stat gets twisted into a narrative. They judge Shedeur Sanders almost exclusively through numbers while ignoring the bigger picture of progression, leadership, and toughness. Football is not played on spreadsheets, and Barry knows that better than anyone. You constantly hear them bringing up QBR like it's the final verdict on a quarterback's future. They talk down on Shedeur Sanders without acknowledging the circumstances, the growth curve, or the responsibility he was handed early. It's lazy analysis dressed up as concern. Meanwhile, Andrew Barry, the man actually running the organization, is making decisive moves. He's not guessing, and he's not reacting to noise. If anyone knows where this team is headed, it's him, not commentators yelling from the sidelines. The disconnect between the Browns front office and the local media couldn't be clearer. At times, it feels like some outlets would rather stir controversy than report on what's actually being built in Cleveland. Barry's confidence in Shedeur Sanders wasn't subtle. It was a direct rebuttal to every doubter who questioned whether the team believed in him, and that confidence matters inside the locker room. Barry made it unmistakable. Shedeur Sanders is the Week 1 starter, no matter how uncomfortable that makes the critics. That reality hits hard for those who thrive on quarterback chaos.
I think we saw a lot of progress with Shedeur this year. I think that's both mentally, physically, playing the position. He's still very much a work in progress, like many rookie quarterbacks are. But I think we saw some really good things in terms of his playmaking, his accuracy, his ability to extend with his feet. And I think I'd also give him credit, as well as our offensive staff, for bringing him along in terms of his pocket management, his situational awareness, and things of that nature. Now, that all being said, we're going to do our work on the quarterback market. It's too important of a position, and it's something that has to be solidified. I can't sit here and tell you today, whether the solution or the starter in 2026 is internal or external, but it's something that we're going to work through, over the next several weeks. And quite honestly, the new head coach will also have a lot of input into that as well.
But Barry isn't here to feed narratives. He's here to move the franchise forward with purpose. And this belief in Shedeur Sanders goes beyond just naming a starter. Barry's remarks tied directly into the Browns' broader vision, including the head coaching search. He made it clear that while quarterback play is crucial, what truly matters is finding a coach who can build around that quarterback, not complain about him. That's a subtle but powerful shift from past mistakes. The organization doesn't want a coach who treats the quarterback position like a problem to solve. They want someone who sees Shedeur Sanders as a foundation to build on. That signals real trust. It tells you the Browns expect the next head coach to develop Shedeur Sanders, support him, and grow with him, not look for the first exit strategy. That's organizational alignment, something Cleveland hasn't always had. Barry even referenced moments like the Cincinnati game as valuable learning experiences, not perfection, but pressure. Those moments test a quarterback's resolve, and Barry clearly saw growth, not failure. No matter how some try to spin it, the truth is simple. Shedeur Sanders is the future, and Andrew Barry is standing firmly behind him. That's not opinion, that's direction. Barry didn't sugarcoat anything when discussing that early performance, and that honesty matters. He openly admitted it wasn't one of Shedeur Sanders' strongest starts, especially in the opening phases of the game. But instead of stopping there like some media voices love to do, Barry zoomed in on what really separated Shedeur from the noise, how he responded when the moment got heavy. When the Browns absolutely needed points, when momentum was hanging in the balance, Shedeur Sanders calmly led the team down the field and delivered.
At that quarterback position, it's just the Cleveland media. Always want to be messy, always want to go against Shedeur because, we already know what time it is. That last name, kill him. Confidence, kill him. The confidence is killing them. And they can't stand it. But what they going to learn is they even going to have to find another team to root for or to cover, or they going to have to get on board because Shedeur Sanders ain't going nowhere as long as Andrew Barry is the GM in charge. Side note, posted over there on Twitter also, Daniel, he said the county sheriff office has completed its investigation into the burglary at the home of Browns quarterback Shedeur Sanders and has arrested 3 out of the 4 suspects. So the people has been arrested for the burglary of Shedeur Sanders' home. when he was getting.
That drive wasn't flashy. It wasn't perfect, but it was composed, controlled, and clutch. For a young quarterback, that speaks volumes. That's maturity under pressure, not panic. Barry made it clear that this is the NFL, not college, not preseason, not a highlight reel league. Defenses are fast, complex, and relentless. No quarterback, especially a young one, is going to play flawless football every single week. Expecting perfection is unrealistic, and Barry refuses to evaluate quarterbacks through that unfair lens. What actually matters, and what Barry emphasized, is response. Can you steady the ship? Can you command the offense when things aren't going your way? Can you lead when the game tightens up? Shedeur Sanders answered those questions in real time. That's why Barry's evaluation feels grounded instead of reactionary. Barry's tone wasn't loud or dramatic. It was deliberate and confident. He focused on growth, situational moments, and leadership rather than nitpicking every throw. That balanced approach tells you everything about how the front office views Shedeur Sanders. They aren't looking for excuses, but they also aren't rushing to judgment. It's obvious from Barry's comments that the Browns are planning around Shedeur Sanders, not auditioning replacements every Sunday. They expect him to improve, yes, but they also expect him to lead. That's a huge distinction. You don't talk that way about a quarterback you're unsure about. Barry's words were steady, not flashy, and that's exactly why they carry weight. This wasn't coach speak or damage control. This was organizational clarity. The Browns trust Shedeur Sanders, and they're willing to let him grow into the responsibility instead of drowning him in doubt. For anyone actually paying attention, it's clear Shedeur Sanders is firmly embedded in the Browns' future plans.
Look at it like this. Now, I could be wrong. It's going to be some heartbreaking news to the Cleveland media. People over there on ESPN in Cleveland. People over there on 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. People right there on G. Bush podcast, the ultimate Cleveland sports show. It's going to be some heartbreaking news. See, they ain't reporting about that, but I'm going to report it. Here we go, right?
And more importantly, he'll have real support from the people who matter. Not just patience, but belief. That's why takes like Jason Lloyd saying Shedeur Sanders shouldn't even be on the team stand out in the worst way possible. That kind of reaction ignores context, development, and reality. It's judgment without perspective. Andrew Barry's response couldn't be more different. He talked about wanting Shedeur Sanders to make major strides going into the new season. Not disappear, not get replaced, not get buried. That's a fair, realistic approach. Barry sees the potential and acknowledges the work ahead, instead of erasing the progress already made. Barry's comments make one thing undeniable. Shedeur Sanders is still very much part of the Browns' long-term vision. That contrast between the front office and certain media voices is glaring. The front office is focused on growth, structure, and improvement. Some media figures, on the other hand, seem focused on stirring reactions by doubting a young quarterback who has already shown flashes of real promise. One major factor that constantly gets brushed aside is the state of the Browns' offensive line. This isn't a small detail. It's foundational. When Shedeur Sanders was in the game, he was often operating behind protection that simply didn't hold up. Expecting a young quarterback to perform miracles while defenders are flying through unblocked gaps is unrealistic. In matchups like the Buffalo game, the line struggled badly.
As of January 6th, I would still say my week one depth chart at quarterback is Shedeur, Deshaun Watson, Dylan Gabriel. I think you can agree with that.
Yeah,
I think that
I don't know what Deshaun is.
I'm very interested to see what these coaches are going to think.
Yeah, look, this is the right move. I would say this is the first thing Andrew Berry's gotten right since the departure of Kevin Stefanski. It was non-committal to their quarterback situation, because the last thing any of you should want, unless you're just Shedeur fans, the last thing any of you should want is to have some new coach tethered to the existing bad quarterback setup. It's the last thing any of you should want. You should want a new coaching candidates to come on in, share their perspective, because they're around the league. They've all looked at film. They've all seen the numbers. They've all seen the analytics.
Shedeur Sanders was hit, hurried, and pressured snap after snap. Yet the media rarely leads with that context. They jump straight to blaming the quarterback. But football doesn't work that way. A quarterback can't consistently deliver perfect throws or make clean reads when he's constantly running for his life. Andrew Berry understands this reality. And despite those challenges, he still stands behind Shedeur Sanders. That tells you how much faith the organization truly has in him. Too often, Browns media seems more interested in controversy than context. Every mistake becomes a headline. Every struggle becomes a verdict. Meanwhile, the progress, toughness, and growth get ignored. Instead of focusing on what Shedeur Sanders needs to improve, which every young quarterback does, some act like his story is already written. That's not analysis, that's impatience. Andrew Berry's words cut him through that noise. Shedeur Sanders is the franchise quarterback, and the Browns are backing him to grow, lead, and develop. It's becoming clearer by the day that the Browns' ownership and the fan base fully understand who Shedeur Sanders is and what he brings to this team. They see the upside, the work ethic, and the leadership traits that don't always show up on a stat sheet. More importantly, they trust him to guide this franchise forward. That belief inside the building and in the stands is real, and it's growing. The real disconnect continues to come from sections of the Cleveland media, who too often seem more focused on manufacturing chaos than supporting the player or accurately reflecting the direction of the team. Instead of highlighting Shedeur Sanders' growth, preparation, and resilience, they lean into doubt and negativity like it's their primary assignment. Rather than acknowledging the hard work he's putting in every week, they keep poking holes, twisting narratives, and amplifying every mistake. It feels intentional at times, like stirring controversy is more valuable than telling the truth.
And they also know everything that led up to why in the world Deshaun fell all the way to the 5th round. And you should keep an open mind. Shedeur, you should keep an open mind. And that includes, by the way, Shedeur being able to compete for the job next year. I think that's totally fair. As I've said throughout, I would have needed to see so much more from Shedeur to just gift him a starting job. And it wouldn't be a gift at that point. It would be he earned the starting job. He has not earned a starting job with no competition. I don't know how anybody could look
I agree with you.
at this situation honestly and say anything else.
Now, as they sit right now, if it stays this way, and it probably won't, I agree with you, but I think that Shedeur is, to me, my clear-cut number one guy. Then it would be Deshaun Watson. I don't have very much interest in him.
In the room.
Of the guys that we have. It would be then Deshaun Watson, then it would be
Now, why
Dylan
is that?
Gabriel.
Because there are no numbers that support what you just said.
Because I do think that there's a ceiling there, and I'd like to see him with a full off season and a full camp. And if you wanted to bring competition, fine. Yes.
But here's the reality. Shedeur Sanders isn't going anywhere as long as Andrew Berry is running this organization. That's not speculation. That's a message straight from the top. This is what real commitment looks like. The front office isn't hedging. They aren't wavering. And they aren't playing both sides. They've shown genuine faith in their young quarterback, and that matters more than any headline or opinion piece. The unfortunate part is how that constant negativity can impact a young quarterback's confidence. Instead of backing him and allowing space for growth, some media outlets magnify errors while completely ignoring context. They gloss over the progress, the leadership moments, and the way Shedeur Sanders handles pressure when the spotlight is hottest. Confidence is everything at the quarterback position, especially for a young player learning on the fly in one of the toughest environments in football. Repeated negative framing doesn't help development. It only adds unnecessary weight. Fans understand this dynamic, and that's why patience and support continue to show up loud on Sundays. The locker room understands it too. The media can keep pushing doubt, but eventually they'll have to decide whether they're covering the team or constantly fighting against it. Shedeur Sanders' future with the Browns looks solid, stable, and protected by leadership that believes in continuity. The front office isn't interested in blowing things up just because a few reporters want attention or controversy. And beyond football, it's important to recognize the very real challenges Shedeur Sanders has faced off the field as well. The burglary at his home just before his first game of the season added a level of stress most people never have to deal with. That's not small, and it's not irrelevant. Despite that distraction, he stayed locked in, showed up, and competed for his team. That speaks to focus and professionalism. The arrests made by the county sheriff's office confirm that the situation was taken seriously, but it also underscores the kind of pressure Shedeur Sanders was navigating behind the scenes. Those are the moments that rarely get mentioned when the media critiques his performance. They don't talk about the mental load, the personal stress, or the ability to compartmentalize and still perform on a massive stage. That context matters. And it deserves respect. At the end of the day, the truth remains unchanged. Shedeur Sanders is the Browns' quarterback. The team knows it, the fans know it, and the front office has made it unmistakably clear. Andrew Berry has stated it plainly. This is the direction of the franchise moving forward. The noise can continue, the doubts can fly, but the decision makers aren't backing down. The media will catch up eventually. Until then, the real story is being written inside the building, not in the headlines.